Hello and welcome to day 8 of the 20-day Building Your Brand Challenge. Today we're going to close the loop. Now, closing the loop is a term that I actually like to use when we're going to pause on a project, reflect and do some review. Now, some people call this a review process, some people call it an auditing process, some people call it a mirroring back process. And it's generally something that's done towards the back end of the project. However, because this is only a 20-day challenge, I'm moving this forward to close the loop with you, specifically on day 8, because I want to make sure that you get this right from the very beginning. So let's begin. I'm drawing a figure 8, and on day 8, and I'm specifically drawing that because the figure 8 is infinite. It's an infinite shape. There's no beginning and there's no ending. There's no interruption. It just continues to cycle and cycle and cycle through. And the reason that I'm teaching you this about closing the loop specifically on day 8 is significant because it's a key lesson that you need to learn about your brand. It doesn't matter if it's a personal brand or a business brand or a product brand. You will always be building, maintaining, or potentially repositioning your brand until you don't have it anymore. So there's no such thing as I build it and they will come, or I build it and then it's done. No. Building a brand is something that you do all the time. It never stops. It's a continuum. It continues on. The only time it would ever stop is because you've chosen to stop, you've sold the business, or you don't want that brand anymore. So you're going to completely get rid of it and then start over again. Even rebranding a brand is not stopping. It's actually changing trajectories. And the reason that I want to talk to you about that now is that we've kind of reached a fork in the road in terms of building your brand. So I really want you to step out of your own environment for today's exercise. Don't go to your normal office. Don't go to your normal hangout. Take yourself elsewhere. And I want you to bring everything that you've already created with you. Now is the time to pause, to reflect, to review, to go back and redo anything that you're not 100% happy with. Yesterday would have been the last day that you had sat down for your 3rd installment of your mood board if you had to do it in a couple of sittings. 2 days ago, you would have had to have decided on your why. The first few days in the piece, you did the what, the how, and the values, your brand's anatomy. Now, this is really important. This is an integral step in the process. Reviewing is an integral step because it's one thing to move forward if you're not 100% happy with where you've arrived with your brand strategically in the conceptual stages so far. Because even if it's 80 or 90% right, you can still finesse that last 5 or 10% as you move along. Now, some creatives, some experts, some consultants will tell you, no, you must perfect before you launch. Unfortunately, we're no longer in an age where you can afford to perfect anything. A lot of the times you have to launch into the marketplace and perfect along the way. The other reason I make this point too is because it's another thing to move forward with your brand if you just haven't answered some of the questions or you haven't done some of the exercises. If you were to forge ahead at this point, you would be building a brand and scaling up a business underneath that brand that is not on a strong or a solid foundation. So when you're much further into the piece and the business is much, much larger, you've got assets within your visual identity that underpins your brand, you may very well crumble. And I have seen that happen many, 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 many times. So I caution you, it is okay on day 8 to pause, to take as much time as you need to redo anything or to complete anything that you haven't already done before you continue on from day 9 to day 20. It doesn't matter if you come back in a day, in 5 days, in 10 days, or a month to complete days 9 to 20. But this is really important that you get right now. Remember, you need to build really strong foundations. Let me share a couple of I don't want to say horror stories, but a couple of disastrous situations that we've had with some of our clients. We had one client who had a large fleet of vehicles, very, very, very well-known franchise, who was bought out by another franchise. They did not share the same value set, so your knees, your suspension of your brand anatomy. They had different communication styles and used different tones of voice when it came to explaining what their product was and how they told their clients about it. And of course, they started to spend oodles and oodles and oodles of money on marketing that was very disconnected, that did not communicate a message, and that just served to confuse their target audience a hell of a lot more. That company chose to rebrand after having lost a hell of a lot of business and a lot of market share. Let me tell you, the rollout for the rebrand of that business was huge. It was costly. Not only did they have to redo their entire fleet of vehicles, they had to redo their brand, all of their collateral and their assets. So that means all of the printed material, because there was a lot of printed material. There was packaging, there was point of sale, there was exhibition and display, there was signage. They had to redo their website, they had to redo their app. It was a very costly exercise, which could have been avoided had they have paused just after the merger and done this process that I'm asking you to do. If they had have sat and spent some time to close the loop, they would have put themselves on the same page. They would have been able to utilize a hell of a lot of assets that they already had. And they certainly would not have had, firstly, the expense of the loss of business. Secondly, the loss of market share, which pushed them right down. And then thirdly, that added expense of having to rebrand and redo everything else. Now, that's an extreme example, but I'm sharing that with you so that you can learn to close the loop. Learn to discern what it is you do like, what it is you don't like. Go back and fill the gaps. Make that foundation of your brand solid. Don't feel pressured. Make the right decisions for the right reasons when it comes to your brand. After all, it's your brand. You have to live and breathe it. You have to wear it. And more importantly, you have to communicate it. And you have to make it walk when it comes to your marketing. Now, moving forward from day 9, we're going to get into the activities, the how to create the branded content, the how to put together the marketing mix, the how to develop the visual look outside of the logo, the how to differentiate yourself. But all of that will be fruitless if you don't learn to close the loop now. Of course, I'd love to give all of you some advice. If you want to share any of your thoughts or any of your questions, please do so. Feel free to comment up this profile. Remember, if there is somebody that you know would benefit from this 20-day challenge, please feel free to share the love. Make sure you turn notifications on for this particular profile so that you can be notified first as soon as the videos are released.